Thank you for auditing Professor Skye's Record Review, the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who knows nothing about Open Mike Eagle. I'm going to be reviewing his album Anime, Trauma, and Divorce, which I absolutely loved, which I've been playing in my house all weekend and that every single member of my family loves and finds catchy and interesting and engaging. But I need to tell you, I am a French professor. I am not a music reviewer. I have no idea who this person is. And the reason that's important is that this is an album of such personal insight that after listening to it 2 or 3 times, I feel as though I know him. Now, just from like looking at his biography, just in title, it turns out he had a TV show, and he's a stand-up comic, and I guess he's also a rapper. I don't know what. That's all I want to know. I want to maintain my ignorance, my profound ignorance, meaning my deep ignorance, but also my meaningful ignorance. Because this album proves how much music can do to let you into someone's life. And even more than that, it shows and proves the expressive possibilities of hip-hop music. Too often, I believe, people dismiss hip-hop as not being able to convey very complicated emotions. It's good at communicating aggression, it's good at communicating high energy, sometimes depression, but nuanced sort of different cycles of life, things that other music is seen to be able to do, hip-hop is often discounted. This album proves the contrary. You see, the thing about hip-hop is that it has so much space for words. So much space. You can communicate so much. You can say 3 times, 4 times as much as you can in a rock and roll song, say. It exists in this way that is intentionally in between speech and poetry. And it's in that little zone where you can also inject as much personality, whether it's humor or sadness, or in this case, both. This album, I throw around the word masterpiece a lot. I don't know if it's a masterpiece of music. I don't know if it's a masterpiece of rapping or alternative hip-hop. But I will tell you this. This is a masterpiece of divorce. Divorce is a very difficult topic to cover. Love is easy. Breakups are easy. But being a middle-aged dude getting divorced is very difficult to express well. How does it not just become Kirk Van Houten, can I borrow a feeling? Okay? How does it not become just the sad ramblings of a has-been who's just watching his life and his wife go out the window? Well, the way to do it is to do what Open Mike Eagle has done, which is lean into that patheticness. Live in that patheticness. Share that patheticness. The whole album really expresses quite well this feeling of middle-aged divorce. Now listen, I'm on the other side of it. Okay, so I got divorced 7 years ago, and I can tell you that while I was going through my divorce, I leaned heavily on music. And I also leaned heavily on comedians. It seems as though comedians and musicians were what got me through it. So I'm kind of mad at Open Mike Eagle for not making this album 7 years ago, 8 years ago now, 7, 8 years ago, when it really would have helped me. Because he expresses so much of the feelings that I felt as a middle-aged guy going through a divorce. The helplessness, the hopelessness, the feeling that I'm too young and too old at the same time. I relied instead on this album by Warren Zevon, Bad Luck Streak and Dancing School. And just in case you're going through a divorce, this is a good one too. In particular, the song Gorilla, You're a Desperado. I used to play that song a lot. It's all about getting divorced and watching your life kind of go away and trying to reclaim some of it. But unlike Warren Zevon and unlike a lot of other great works of divorce, there's no part of this in which he is sort of lying on the floor in a puddle of his own sick, going, I'm such a sinner, why did I mess up? What did I do? I don't deserve this. There's no part of this that feels self-pitying. Okay, maybe a little self-pitying, but it's not like lamentation. It's not a dirge, and it's definitely not, often divorce albums, particularly from men, tend to be about, oh, I did this myself. They tend to be sort of criticisms, partial praising of self-destructive behavior. I know nothing about Open Mike. I don't know who he's married to. Maybe it's someone famous. Maybe it's not. Maybe he made this whole thing up. I have no idea. But I will tell you that the way he's able to express this, it's very clear that it's a very, very, very painful divorce, and he is living in it. Now, the thing about this album that takes it even one step beyond I'm just talking lyrically now too. I'll get musically, but lyrically this is very special. I think, I said comedians got me through too, right? And the now disgraced, still funny Louis C.K. Had a great line, I think. I'm probably misquoting him, and maybe it's not him. You can tell me in the comments if I'm wrong. He once said, there's no such thing as a bad divorce. There's only bad weddings, right? All divorces are good. When you go through them, they feel terrible, and they feel like the worst thing you've ever experienced, but it's actually the marriage that was the problem. This album is also an amazing study in the nature of a bad marriage, of a toxic relationship, the cycles of dysfunction that go from one generation to the next and poison all the generations and all the relationships that you have. In this kind of goofy, somewhat comic, very well produced rap album that almost sounds like it could be a joke based on the title, Anime, Trauma, and Divorce, he manages to do both things. Express the misery of midlife divorce and express the misery of a relationship which was probably started before the two people involved had done enough work on themselves to maintain a healthy relationship. This is an amazing work of art. Now, musically, it's fun because, I was talking about the emotions of hip-hop. It developed sonically to the point where this album is very kind of muted, kind of soft and jazzy at times. It's not really like powerful and funky. It's kind of more soulful and even kind of like blues. I guess you'd put it in the category of alternative rap, but I'll play you an example of what it sounds like. I would say the production definitely comes second. Comes second to the words, even though the production all the way throughout is completely solid and really well done. But it really is like the music is carrying the words and the words are carrying the feelings. And it really is the feelings that are out front. What I want to do in particular is focus on two songs. My two favorite songs on the album, Sweatpants Spider-Man and that episode of Black Mirror. So first of all, Sweatpants Spider-Man, just the name, right? So he's able to express in this song the feeling that you get after you get divorced when you're in middle age. When you don't look as good as you used to, when you weigh a little bit more, when your beard's gray or your hair's gone, or you've got an extra 20 pounds, and the feeling of like, how am I going to start again? Like, I'm realistically an okay person, and I think he gets the sense that he's realistically an okay person, but how is he going to move on and become something more? And so every lyric, this guy must be a comedian. I mean, he must be a very good comedian, because so much of what this is observations put to music, like observational comedy about the desperation of middle-aged divorce. So he starts off talking about, I should be studying Kendrick, I should be dressing like Hendrix, I should think about moving, I should think about doing push-ups, and then he has this chorus, which is just my favorite chorus. I played this song probably 10 times so far. My family is sick of it, but every time I play it, they get excited. Where he just goes, tattoos, haircuts, gold chains, anime. Over and over and over again. Tattoos, tattoos, tattoos. He just keeps on saying these things. And I believe, in my understanding of it, he's sort of talking about these things that he might do. Like he might get a tattoo, midlife crisis, he might do that, right? Or he might get a haircut, right? Or he might get a gold chain to show that he's had some success in the music business. But then underneath it all, we have anime, which I believe represents his sort of failure to do these things. A lot of people would make an album like this and it'd be about, sitting on your couch and smoking dope, or it'd be about, going clubbing, or some kind of means of escaping the pain that you feel within, some kind of semi-addictive or completely addictive behavior. And in his case, it's anime. All throughout this album, anime is everywhere. And that comes from somebody who knows next to nothing about anime. You might be looking there and saying, hey, Skye, but what about that stuffed animal? True story. That stuffed animal was a gift to my daughter from my ex-wife's boyfriend. That's how little I know about anime. It's from Full Metal Alchemist, I think. I think that's what it's from. I don't know what. I don't like anime. I find it kind of boring. But I understand the mentality, the obsessive, nerdy mentality that goes into loving it. And especially the sense that this artist has, where it's like he has all these things he could do, but he doesn't do them. And he has these little details. Like he talks about the court process, which is some of the worst things about divorce. There's so many things that are so bad. I came up with a proverb once, may you never see the inside of a family court. Like it's just the worst place on earth. It's the worst. It's just never, if you can avoid it, don't go there. And he has this whole verse. Court is on recess, dry cereal, wheat checks. It's like indicating like how much his life has fallen apart, that he's eating dry cereal. Finally trying those V-necks, which is why I'm wearing a V-neck now in honor of that. Like he's actually talking about like trying to mix up his style and do something different. And he talks about doing push-ups and getting back pain, having his knees hurt. He has this cool bridge that comes in where he talks about almost turning 40 in this beautiful kind of bridge. He faces everything with humor, with strength, while admitting weakness and constantly needing to like help himself cope with things like a 90s alternative comforting playlist. I'm gonna play you the song just to give you an idea of what it sounds like, what his flow is like. I wouldn't say his flow is spectacular. It's not even that consistent really, one song from another, but it does the trick of conveying these excellent words, and you'll hear some of this really nice production as well.
Chords nap and recess, little slow on my reflex, dry cereal weak checks, finally trying every neck, started doing more push-ups, back pain when I look up, taking down what I put up, knee hurt when I stood up, Instagram.
And I just got to play you the chorus just because it's so catchy and wonderful.
Tattoos, haircuts, gold chains, anime. Tattoos, haircuts, gold chains, anime. Tattoos,
Hey, it's a music video.
Tattoos.
Just give the song a chance. I just reviewed that album by Benny the Butcher. Super hardcore hip hop and awesome beats by Hit Boy. This really isn't that. It's very relaxed, very cool, very kind of West Coast calm. But really, it's all about this midlife divorce. And then we get to the episode that's all about why the divorce happened in the first place, called the Black Mirror episode. And this song, I cannot say enough about this. First of all, sonically, it's the most interesting because it sounds like a horror song. It's just very like low bass and very ominous. Like these bells are all over the place. And it's a song about watching a Black Mirror TV show. The British TV show that's all about like relationships and how they fall apart and about technology and its life. It's like the Twilight Zone for the 21st century. And the whole thing is based on the premise that it was a Black Mirror episode that ended his marriage. Unless you've been in a toxic, bad relationship, this song won't make sense to you. If you have, this song makes perfect sense. It is completely ironic, okay? He's saying that the reason that the marriage broke up was because of this episode. It's clear he doesn't actually mean that. But it's also clear that the fact that and I don't know what episode, I intentionally did not look it up. I did not look up what Black Mirror episode he's referring to, because it doesn't matter. What matters is he was with his wife, they were watching TV, and something was able to show a weakness in a relationship or a bad thing in a relationship to the point where it actually hurt the couple. It hurt the couple because when you're in a bad relationship, it's like you have like a cavity in your tooth, it's underneath the last filling. It just gets hollower and hollower, and all it takes is like a little tiny popcorn to just crack the filling, crack the crown. Like that's what's happening here. And this is a whole song about that piece of popcorn that cracked the crown, that showed the weakness underneath. And it's hilarious. It's very, very funny the way that it's made, because he sounds like, why did you do this, Black Mirror? Why did you do this? But it's very clear that what he's actually talking about is this relationship. It's just awesome. I can't think of anything else that does this well. This channel, right? I do this channel partly because I want to understand what's happening in music and culture. And the fact that I got to discover this, that somebody was able to express something so bizarre and true. It is what a good comedian does. Something bizarre and true. Like a small detail that just tells the truth. And he could have done it in a 10-minute thing, a 10-minute comedy act about, so we were watching Netflix the other night, and everyone claps because they understand Netflix. But they do it here, and he just lets the emotion out. And it is funny. But when we get to this line, saw Black Mirror and it looks like us, now we got to get some lawyer papers. You just feel the pain and the sadness. So those are the two songs that exemplify the best. I'll go through the rest of the album briefly. It starts off with a track called Death Parade, which is all about that cycle I was talking to you about of abuse and dysfunction, that explains how his father treated him and his grandfather treated his grandfather, and how his ex-wife's mom treated her, and et cetera, and et cetera. And the way that all these things happen, and he talks about trying to lift his feet up and he trips. He's trying to protect himself and he still trips. And you can't break the cycle, you can't break the wheel unless you work really, really, really hard. a nerdy reference I did understand here. There's so many references to anime that I don't really get. But he talked about Professor X and Magneto. I know about that. And it seems like he's hoping not to make the same mistake, but he does. And the reason that he does is because of track 2, Head Ass, which I believe just means stupid and kind of stubborn. And this is very much a comedy song, but just so much about like, why is he such an idiot? Like, why is he so dumb? Why am I like this? And the thing about middle-aged divorce is that it's a healthy dose, it's a healthy mixture of determination to self-improve mixed in with so much self-loathing that it's almost impossible to improve. Like that mixture. And this album does a great job of going between those two different modes. Then comes the track Sweatpants Spider-Man I just talked about. Bucciarati, I don't know what that means, with some singer, Carrie Foe, talking again about things falling apart. There's a whole theme about armor. And this is another thing, which I'd like to get into. I wasn't planning, these aren't in my notes, I'm just thinking, because he talks about armor a lot. And the thing is if you grew up in trauma, it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be trauma from the streets, it can be trauma from your family, the way you're treated. A lot of people, when they come from trauma, they try to build armor around themselves to protect themselves, and it gives them a sort of sense of strength. But the reality is that you can't have armor, right? Like psychologically, you can't have armor. The only thing you can do is make yourself stronger, because you're going to get hit and your armor is going to break, and then you're going to be weak and vulnerable underneath that cracked armor, right? So this whole song, I believe, is hitting home that theme, that like it's not enough to build armor. And if you think about anybody in your life who has suffered from trauma, they are always going to try to protect themselves. And the number one way that most people who grew up in dysfunctional families try to protect themselves, do you know how? They get married. They get married young, and they try to fix the problems from their parents before they fix the problems with themselves. So the marriage becomes the armor. It's terrible. It's so stupid. But that's what people do. And that's why there's such a high divorce rate. Asa Bop is probably the best production on the album. It's got this really cool chorus with like children singing in a different voice, a different language. Really cool like junky drum under the verse. Again, like talking about being too poor, looking at his bank account. He's talking about himself in the third person, but still it seems like mainly thing he's doing is watching anime. He even references Cannonball by the Breeders, which is kind of weird and really drives home the fact that this is a very nerdy rapper, right? I mean, that's like a fairly obscure 90s alternative rock reference. But all of that is mixed in with this great work of Pain. The Edge of New Clothes is kind of a psychedelic song, kind of a dreamy beat, a different flow in this, like his voice goes up. He references Eddie Pepitone. I guess this guy really is a comedian. How have I not heard of him before? I don't know. This one's maybe has the saddest line, promise when I die you'll pretend to remember me. And then the song Everything Ends Last Year. And this is where we get into the most pitiful moment. It's basically spoken word about someone who feels as though he's lost everything, verse by verse. First verse is why did he lose his TV show? I guess his TV show wasn't renewed. I'm going to guess the show is really good based on this album, but I haven't seen it. Have you? Please put in the comments if I should watch his show. I don't even know what it's called. I don't remember what it's called. I remember it's a title that I shouldn't say. So I don't know what it is. So the first verse is about the TV show ending. Second verse is about the friendships that lost when he tried to start a record label. And I believe the third one is about his divorce, which was trying to balance a rock and a feather. And this whole thing is like, it's October and I'm tired. It's like, it's October and I'm tired. But like, I remember, because his 2019 was my 2013. And like, just this feeling of just like, everything is falling apart. And he puts it out there and he says it exactly right with that great mixture of loathing and love and pain. Which then leads to the next track, WTF Is Self-Care. Okay, here his delivery basically becomes Snoop Dogg. He basically becomes Snoop Dogg delivery. That's why I say he doesn't always have a consistent style. But this is a beautiful song about the like when you get divorced, everyone tries to help you. Well, 30% of the people in your life try to help you a lot. All of your friends who are married will stay away from you like you're contagious. You can't blame them. It is kind of contagious because you're like, wait a minute, My relationship's terrible. So for the people who are there to try to help you, the main thing they tell you is do some self-care. But it's like, what is self-care? This whole album could be called WTF Self-Care. Like should I be doing push-ups? Or in here, like, oh, I get it. It's about massages and smoothies with kale cubes or something. And he's like constantly talking about like making fun of it, like getting a massage in a place that's not a garage. I think I know what you're suggesting, but that's just depressing. He talks about crying so hard that he was gurgling. So all these cases, it's this funny take of somebody who really doesn't know how to take care of himself. He understands, like, on some level, I need self-care, but he never gets it. He says, I understand, but could you explain it again? I don't get it. Oh, it's like going to a winery, it's taking a bath. In case you're watching, or in case you're in this position, the answer is therapy. That's self-care. Therapy and going to the gym. That's what got me through. Like just on an elliptical, just burn through an elliptical half hour, listen to music, and go to therapy once a week. Settle out the things that your parents did you. That's my suggestion, by the way. That's my self-care. It's a lot less expensive than fancy smoothies. Then comes the track Joestar. I did have to look up Joestar because I think there's Joestar and some guy in Idiot, which are like, as far as I can tell, like two different poles of anime characters, and like Gingy, maybe, the idiot, and Joestar, like one's the super cool guy who's the guy who can do the fighting and is the good guy, and then the other guy's like an idiot. And it seems as though if I had a better understanding of anime, this album would help me out a lot more, because I'd be able to connect to this whole song where he's like, screw it, I'm Joestar. I don't know what that means, but I know what it means, because what he's saying is, I'm just going to be awesome. I don't care if I'm divorced. I'm going to be a superhero. And okay, so in the anime, the guy's not black, but this time he'll be black because he'll be me, and I'm the protagonist. And he makes my favorite joke on the whole album. He refers to Arsenio Speedwagon instead of REO Speedwagon, the bad soft rock band. This guy is really funny. I mean, that is a Arsenio Speedwagon. Like, just those words are just going to be stuck in my head forever. And I love this idea that he's having this whole fantasy about himself being awesome. And I think this is just as fake as the patheticness that he feels at the same time. I think he's, by projecting this sort of self-aggrandizing and self-debasement, he's making it so that neither of them are really true, that he's just kind of lost. And he's going through these almost manic depressive swings of like, I'm so great, I'm Joestar, I'm so bad, I'm an idiot. Next track, Airplane Boneyard, kind of very super silky, smooth jazz beat. Again, talking about armor and just trying to live. And then the album ends totally unexpectedly. Because this is the thing. I don't know if this guy has kids. I don't. I had no idea listening to this album. And I have 2 kids, and divorce with kids is super real. It is the most painful thing about divorce. If you have kids, the weight that you feel on them, the insane hegemony of the nuclear family in popular culture, the shame, the fear, it's the worst thing. Like, you feel so guilty and you feel so terrible all the time. Nowhere on this album did I get the sense that he felt that guilt. But then on this song, it's just a goofy song about snorkeling. It's a comedy bit about how hard it is to go snorkeling. But there's a child rapping. So I'm just going to assume that this is his child. And if it's not, you can put it in the comments. Skye, you dunderhead, you're not a Joestar. You're a Shinji the idiot, because that's not true. But I'm guessing whoever this little kid is who's rapping, it's his kid, which totally changes the rest of the album. Makes me relate to it even more, because this is the way through. Like, if you're divorced with a kid or kids, that's the way through. Screw worrying about yourself too much. Take care of yourself enough to be a good person, work on breaking the cycles, but then create a stable, growing, nurturing environment for your kids. And so having his kid on here rapping about not wanting to be snorkeling because it's too scary, snorkeling sounds terrible to me, like doing this activity with his kid, building to his kid, reminds me of being in my basement playing guitar while my kids were playing drums and piano, right? Like, that's what I used to do, and that's the way I got through it. So it is not a hopeless album. It is a very good snapshot of the hopelessness that one feels at a certain point in one's life. It transcends geography and race and class and all that, and really is able to show, through the medium of hip-hop, the sentiment and the feeling of middle-aged divorce. Tattoos. Okay. It's a really good album. I don't know if this guy's stuff is good otherwise. If you are a fan of his, could you please let me know, like, what else has he done? Because, like, this guy is amazing, I think. Okay, well, we're gonna go, speaking of kids, we're gonna go on a Halloween parade. I don't know what that's gonna be like. 6 feet, masks. There's the camera.